Alrighty. This is the late 80s/early 90s. I was around 7 years old. I'm at home with my sister who was 14, 15 at the time. We grew up in a small Texas town. Everyone knows everybody. We are home alone this particular night. My folks let my sister babysit me frequently. We always got along due to our age gap. Anyway, it is about 8 p.m. in the winter. Deserts get pretty damn cold. So it is dark and we are in the common room since that is where the TV was. Watching 60 Minutes or 48 Hours or Hard Copy or some shit. Those one-hour news pieces on CBS that chronicle large crimes in depth. Trafficking, murders, kidnappings and the like. Basically a gritty Lifetime special. This one was a typical story. Guy next door that was quiet went on a rampage in his next-door neighbor's house, mutilating them and kidnapping their young daughter. Well, the thing about our house common room is the door leading to the backyard was a large glass door on a wall of floor-to-ceiling windows. Nothing but blackness beyond it unless you have the backlight on. We did not. The front door is on the other side of the room with a small entryway. This is a solid door, so you cannot see what is beyond it, with a glass storm door on the outside of it. About 45 minutes into the show, they are talking about the ongoing manhunt for this crazy guy and bum. Front door bangs like crazy. We jump the fuck up and scream like banshees. Dead silence now. The only lights on in the house are the kitchen down the hall from the common room we were in and the light from the TV. We start thinking something on the porch. We had some planters and a rocking chair out there. Had simply blown against the door. This was West Texas. Crazy strong winds out that way. Well, a minute or two of silence and us holding each other post-adrenaline overdose passes. Just when we are about to declare everything is safe, we hear the storm door on the outside of our front door close. Someone had to have opened that door to be able to bang on the front door like that. Shit. We are both frozen in the middle of the room on the floor where we had been watching TV. My sister crawls over to the TV and turns it off. It was an old TV, so you had to turn that metal dial to switch it off, which it does with a mildly loud thunk. Now it is just us, in a room dimly lit by the kitchen light down the hall. I do not remember how much time passed with my frozen and my sister still crouched by the now off TV. But we kept making eye contact, then looking at the front door. I remember this part vividly. I'm on my knees, sitting on my feet, and I turn around to look at the back wall of windows and glass door. We hear, and I see the back door knob turn. It was locked on the knob, but not deadbolted. It rattles slightly as if someone is gently trying the handle. Neither of us make a sound, just held breath. Then bam, 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 loud as all hell. Someone is trying to force the door open, just jerking it back and forth. The whole wall of windows is vibrating violently, and I can see with each jerk of the door how my slight reflection gets fuzzy, then clear, then fuzzy. My sister flips her shit and screams bloody murder. I'm still frozen on the floor. She gets up and basically drags me into her bedroom, slams the door, throws her mattress and anything she can in front of her door. Thankfully, she had remembered the phone, one of those ungodly heavy beige plastic long metal antenna portable phones. We still had to direct dial the sheriff there, and in her panic didn't remember the number. She just hit redial on the phone. It was one of her friends, and she tells them in broken gasps that someone is trying to get into our house and needs to get there right fucking now. The profanity sticks out here more than anything else. Who knows? Young brain. I'm curled up on the floor and cannot stop shaking. We don't hear anything else until we see the headlights of my sister's friend and her parents driving up to the house. We never did find out who was at the door, or why. There were no signs of anything happening, but a couple of scuff marks on the bottom of the back door that we could not remember if they were there beforehand or not. Nothing like that has happened to me or her since. But for damn sure, we never forget to lock a door after that. I'm a girl, and I live in a pretty big old house with 5 Navy guys. My room is by itself out in the detached garage. So one night I'm sleeping out there, and in my dream, I assume I'm hearing this loud rattling noise. I slowly start waking up, but I feel pretty out of it. I open my eyes and look around, and the noise continues. The door is about 3 feet from the end of my bed, and the doorknob is rattling like crazy. It almost sounds like someone is pounding on it, but I can't tell if it's someone knocking or someone just trying to open it. At this point, I realize I'm really awake, and this is not a dream. Even my lab, who never wakes up during the night, is up and staring at the door. I often used to forget to lock my door because we live in what seems like a pretty quiet neighborhood. But thankfully, I'd begun deadbolting it more regularly, maybe like a week before. Probably due to something I read on Reddit. I don't remember. I'm terrified. I always hoped I'd be one of those people who responded better in a situation like this. But I was not. The door is still rattling, and I can see the motion light is on and shining through the window in my closet. All my blinds are closed. I'm near tears, and I throw the blanket over my head and wait to die. I have literally nothing in my room that I could defend myself with except a flashlight, which I am holding on to tightly. I am paralyzed with fear and just sit there as silently as I can, curled up in the fetal position with my metal flashlight. A minute later, the noise stops, and I finally am able to move. I have a weird closet with a window at the top and a big bench. So I crawl in there, climb up on the bench, and poke my head up. A few seconds after that, the motion light goes out. I'd missed whatever was going on. I run back to my bed and begin thinking logically. I live with 5 guys. They often have people over late at night after going out downtown. I look at my watch and it's 2:30. About the time they get home from bars closing. Maybe someone was very intoxicated and just being stupid. Right? So I text all my roommates, trying not to make a big deal of it and sound silly. Hey guys, are you up? Do you have people over? Someone was just outside my door trying to get in. I assume someone must be drunk or something. Huh, kinda creepy. Less than 2 minutes after that, I hear the back door to the main house swing open. I hear whistling and banging. My roommates are running around the backyard with baseball bats. Thankfully, one of them is a light sleeper, and he woke up and got another guy up. I open the door, run inside with my dog, and don't go to sleep again that night. My roommates spent the next couple hours patrolling the house and watching out the windows. We never saw anyone. But they did find a pack of cigarettes lying in our backyard along with a bag of Hardee's or something like that. More than likely, it was just someone trying to rob us. And because there were 6 cars in the driveway, they decided to go for the garage where they probably assumed no one was, and not the house where they'd probably get themselves killed. However, at the time, for all I knew, all my roommates had already been murdered, and I was the last one to go. That's what I figured at the time anyway. Anyway, definitely not the scariest story in this thread, but I definitely didn't sleep for a while after that. And it took me about 3 weeks to start sleeping out in my room again. About 5 years ago, my mom started dating a guy she met on a dating site. That part is fine. I had recently started dating the woman who would later become my wife, and we had met online. I'll just refer to her as my wife for this story. Anyway, my wife and I never really liked this guy. We didn't think he was mean or anything like that. Just a little creepy. He was quiet. He kept his eyes closed a lot, and occasionally said odd things like offering my wife a chocolate and then popping one in his mouth, closing his eyes, and moaning as he let it melt in his mouth. One time my wife and I were visiting my mom, but she got called into work, so we waited at her house. Her boyfriend was over, but he spent the entire several hours just hanging out in her bedroom with the door closed. Just before Christmas, my mom and this guy started having some difficulties. My wife and I were visiting her for the holidays, and she dropped all of her problems on us, and we listened carefully and told her our opinions and suggested that she would be better off without him. She already had her mind made up, though, and decided to break up with him on Christmas Eve. We spent the night at my mom's and got up early on Christmas morning to visit my dad at his house. We didn't plan to spend the night at my dad's, but we got snowed in, which was actually a nice Christmas surprise. The next day we left as soon as we could get through the snow, and my wife suggested that we stop by my mom's house on the way so that we could see if she was okay. My wife just had a really bad feeling about my mom's now ex-boyfriend. My mom's car was in the driveway, but that doesn't mean much because she lives close enough to work that she often walks and it hadn't snowed in her town. She also never locks her door, which drives me crazy. So we let ourselves in. That's when we see blood oozing out of the refrigerator's water dispenser. It had filled up the spill container and was leaking onto the floor and had made a puddle. My wife screamed and I freaked out. I fully expected to see my mom's head in the freezer. I nervously opened the freezer to find a bag of frozen cherries that had been opened, crammed into the freezer so that it fell onto the ice dispenser and melted. Thought my mom was decapitated by her creepy ex-boyfriend. When I was a kid, the thing I hated to do the most was take my clothes downstairs to the basement and place them in a big pile next to the laundry machine so that my mom would wash them. That side of the basement was not finished, and it freaking terrified me. I had so many nightmares about the place, like crazy reoccurring nightmares that I would realize when they were happening, but I was unable to escape them. One of the nightmares was that I would be up and around the house with no one else at home. And then I would become aware that it was approaching the time. I don't know what time it was, but I could feel it in my bones that bad things were about to happen. So I would get under the kitchen table. The door to the basement was in the kitchen. And then the basement door would open, and I could see the legs of some man. I never knew who it was. I never saw his face. But I knew that if this creature caught me out in the open, it would do terrible things to me. The worst thing was the thought that it knew I was under the table, but it enjoyed the fact that I was so afraid, hiding under there, trying not to be seen or heard. Sometimes, either at the end of an unrelated dream or on its own, I'd be walking down the stairs into the basement, and when I stepped off the last step, I was plunged into total darkness and something would grab me. I can't explain the terror this produced in me, and the fact that I knew at the top of the stairs what was about to happen, and I could not stop walking. There were other crazy dreams like that, all taking place in the basement or about the basement. I hated the basement. One day when I had to take my laundry down, I was home alone except for my dog, so I decided it'll be better to have her down there with me than have to go by myself. I grab my laundry, call the dog, and head down the stairs. It's daylight. Light is streaming down the stairs and into the basement through these small slit windows. Nothing is all that terrifying. I saunter over to the machine, casually toss my clothes onto the pile, and start to make my way back up the stairs. Previous boldness aside, I always run up the stairs because I hate the basement. I was a scrawny kid, so you could barely hear my feet tapping up the stairs. Suddenly, all I can hear is this insane thudding and scrambling coming up the stairs behind me. My brain almost literally shut down. I screamed with terror. I felt my heart pounding in my chest, and I couldn't even continue moving up the stairs. I simply fell onto the stairs and curled up into a ball. Can you even imagine growing up and being told monsters aren't real? And then facing the moment where your worst nightmare is about to murder you in your own home? I just shut my eyes as tight as I could and waited to die. Then my dog started licking my face, excited to be playing a fun new game called Race You Up the Stairs. The only time I was extremely creeped out was this one time staying at my parents' house. It was 2009, and I was visiting my parents during a break from college. Anyways, They had moved into this house the year after I left to go to school, and it always kind of creeped me out. Pretty big compared to where they were moving from. 4-bedroom, 2.5 bathroom, 2-car garage. Anyways, I was napping downstairs in the living room on the couch. It was around 1 p.m., incredibly sunny outside. I woke up to the sound of a doorknob jiggling upstairs. The doors for the rooms in this house had those doorknobs that you push in and turn to lock. My dad, being the guy he was, had locked himself in the bathroom a few times before, since he had never seen these kinds of doorknobs before, to much comedic effect and frustration on his part. Anyways, the fact that it had woken me up was one thing. I'm a fairly heavy sleeper. I assumed that my dad came home from work for a break, since it's about a 10-minute drive from the house, and go upstairs saying I'll get him out. The weird thing is that none of the doors were locked upstairs. Nobody was there. All the doors were wide open. I got a little creeped out, but chalked it up to a dream or imagination. I go back downstairs, turn the TV on, and pretty much promptly fall asleep again. I wake up again. This time I know I heard the knob upstairs jiggling violently. It was loud enough that it was above the white noise from the TV. I immediately get creeped out. Call both my parents from my cell phone to make sure they had come home early from work. Both of them were still at work. I sat for a second, TV off, completely silent. Thought about checking upstairs, and noped the hell out of there. It's the only time I've been incredibly creeped out at, like 2 o'clock on a Saturday afternoon. So, here's a wild true story from 2019 about my uncle's wife, Jenna, who got possessed by a female spirit one eerie night. Buckle up, y'all. Just a regular day in our lives. I got back from college, and that evening, I was off to a birthday party for my cousin's buddy. Our whole squad showed up. We ate our hearts out, and after the party wrapped up, we started our walk back home alongside another family from our building. As we neared our place, out of nowhere, my dad gets this call from his pal at around 11:35 p.m. going, "Hurry over. Something's up with Jenna. She's not recognizing anyone and is talking all sorts of weird." My dad jetted off to their house solo, and we headed home, freaked out big time. Oh, and the fam had a daughter, Mia, 17 years old, a son, Liam, 12 years old, their uncle, Grandpa Mike, and Grandma Ella at home that night. Soon after, a bunch of their close ones came over to tackle the situation. Around 8 p.m., we were glued to the TV, the usual routine. Mia was there with me, and Uncle and Grandpa Mike were out. Grandma Ella had just knocked out the day's chores and was about to hit the shower. Then, the lights go kaput, so Grandma Ella grabs a candle for the bathroom trip. She was heading to the terrace since that's where the bathroom is. Mia and I were just chilling, shooting the breeze with our phone lights on, when suddenly, we hear this scream. It was Grandma Ella. We bolted to the terrace and found her on the ground, spewing gibberish like she's plotting some scheme and laughing non-stop. We hauled her back to her room. Mia and I were trying to pin her down on the bed as she kept rambling on. The freakiest part, she kept begging to be let upstairs, going, "Please, let me go. You do love me, right? Just let me go." Then, Uncle walks in, totally lost at the sight of her bizarre laughter. Uncle heads upstairs and fetches some incense from the prayer room. That kind that gives off a soothing vibe, kinda like incense sticks. Before stepping into the room, he lit the incense. He went in to grab Grandma Ella's phone to call Grandpa Mike since his phone was dead. On his way back down, he suddenly feels this chill, like someone's yanking his neck upwards against the wall. He spots this dark shadow, even makes out a face, but clams up whenever someone probes about it. Just snaps. Never bring that up with me again. He comes tearing down, chanting prayers, drenched in sweat, scared witless. We dialed up Grandpa Mike, and he hustled back. By 9:20 p.m., he arrives to see Grandma Ella cracking up like a loon and throwing insults. Who's this mutt's offspring? Seriously. She was spouting nonsense. Grandpa Mike was trying to piece it together, especially since Grandma Ella wasn't even recognizing her own kids. Grandpa Mike rings up all the close fam and friends, telling them to swing by. A crowd of about 7, 8 people, both men and women, show up, doling out prayer beads and chanting up a storm. Nothing sticks. Grandma Ella's still cackling, mocking our efforts, tossing insults like nobody's business. Hitting 12:50 a.m. With nothing working, we called in a spiritual healer, dubbed Eric, a lean dude known for his spirit dealings. He shows up, slightly thrown by the whole scene. He settles next to Grandma Ella, trying to get through to the spirit, asking, "Who are you? And what do you want?" She's like, "He's calling for me. Let me go. He's waiting up on the rooftop." Hinting there's some dude and a cat expecting her, still clueless about what that was about. Eric mumbles some chants, whispers in her ear, and she goes off on him before suddenly dozing off. Around 2:45 a.m., she wakes up, clueless. "Why's everyone here? Hold up. I'll whip up some tea." Acting as if the last few hours were a blank. Everyone crashed there that night, and the power flicked back on around 4 a.m. The next morning, she shares with her sister about this massive black cat she saw on a nearby roof right before her mind went dark. This cat kept growing, and so did its shadow, and she accidentally stepped on the shadow, which is when everything went blank for her. Fast forward to 2022, as Mia recounts this to me. I was right there, crashing at their place as part of a self-imposed quarantine. Day 1 back in town. That first night, I insisted on keeping the lights on, but only managed to catch a couple of hours of sleep, totally wrapped up in a blanket, sweating buckets. I ended up sleeping near the door of that very same room where it all happened. I could have easily spun this tale for some clicks and likes. But trust me, this is one of the most eerie, real-life horror stories I've come across in a long while. So, there you have it. A tale that sounds like it's straight out of a horror movie, but is as real as it gets. Right from the heart of a regular family, dealing with something utterly unexplainable. Just goes to show, the weirdest, most unsettling stories are sometimes hidden in the most ordinary places.